Welcome back to the Successful Farming Podcast. In today's episode, Lisa Foust Prater sits down to have a conversation with Andy Caygeon Junkin, who shares his personal journey as a seventh-generation farmer and the challenges he faces within his family dynamic. He emphasizes the importance of communication, conflict resolution, and self-improvement in creating a successful farming legacy.
Caygeon, thank you so much for joining me today on the Successful Farming Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate that.
Well, your work just spans years and years of writing and work with farm families. So I'm excited to talk to you today. Before we get into that, let's start with your background. You were born the seventh generation of your family's farm in Ontario. So tell me, what it was like growing up there and how you that legacy, that pull to fulfill that legacy affected you growing up.
Well, the day I left for college, I'm a seventh generation farm boy from a little town called Bob Caygeon, Ontario. Since I was 8 years old, I always signed every piece of document of Bob Caygeon. And I'm very proud of where I'm from. My name doesn't matter as much as I'm from Bob Caygeon, Ontario. Fortunately, I'm living in Eastern Iowa today. And that's part of my story is how I got down here. Basically, the day I left for college, my mom, she showed me the farm financials. And she said to me, you got 5 years to fix these numbers or else I'm leaving your father. So we were in a situation where we had to change. And change was something my dad was very abrasive to any suggestions of unless it was his idea. And so I came back from college. I went down to Australia and New Zealand for a year, came back with 120 pounds in textbooks, really studying their grazing management systems. Part of the problem we have with our farm, where I'm from is about 5 miles north of us. The corn does not grow. We're basically the last farm before you hit the Canadian wilderness. And basically we were trying to farm like it was Iowa. We were trying to farm like the county extension agent told us to do. And that just simply wouldn't work for the soil type and the situation we had. So I came back with a 200-page business plan. I had 5 Tupperware containers full of information and research to back up every assumption. And my dad looked at the cover and he threw it straight in the fire. He says, forget everything you learned at college. You work for me now. And then that led to a lot of bickering within our family because we had to change or else my mom was going to get a divorce. And so I understand where a lot of guys are at that are young farmers right now, where they are looking at the numbers today and saying, this is not going to work. What happens if we lose? I mean, the Chinese bean industry is gone, right? Everybody's going to grow corn next year. We've got to do something different. And I understand the science of decision-making has been my infatuation ever since. But the situation my dad and I had was we got into, my uncle said, well, why don't you try the kids' ideas out on small acreage and try them. And if they work, great. If they don't, they don't. My dad actually plowed my crops under out of jealousy when my uncle made the comment, your boy's going to make more money off a couple of acres this year than you're going off the entire farm. And my dad was abrasive to any suggestions for change. Every suggestion I had, he's seen as me being arrogant and telling him how to do things. And the truth was, my dad was very narcissistic. My dad was very entitled. He thought we were 7th-generation farmers. We were always going to be farmers, right? It was everybody else had to change, not us, right? And my dad was very narcissistic. And basically for 10 years, my uncle died. We didn't have a mediator. And, we basically had 10 years of bickering. My parents did get the separation. One day my mom went off to my mom said when we had a succession planner at the farm, the succession planner was only there for about 15 minutes before my dad walked out the kitchen. And my mom yelled at him, do not buy more farming equipment until you got a business plan with your son. And so he went off to an auction sale. And he came home with a manure spreader. The day that the manure spreader came to our farm, there was when the shit hit the fan. But I've turned crappy situations around ever since.
Oh my gosh.
And so but unfortunately it led to a situation about after a decade of bickering, my father and I accused my dad of being narcissistic, of being entitled, of being arrogant. But looking back now, after 20 years of saving over 800 family farms and seeing a bit of myself in each of these families, I can realize now that I was arrogant, I was narcissistic, and I was entitled too. And
You know,
unfortunately, we took it all for granted.
yeah.
It got to a situation where I almost hung myself.
Mm,
I walked into the barn and all I had was the word stubborn, because I had made my threat about 8 months before. If we don't get a business plan and a succession plan by my birthday, I'm going to hang myself. And my dad did not take my threat seriously. And so it led me to a situation where I was sitting on a barn beam. I had just officiated a wedding, like I was clear of sound in mind. I had driven 5 hours back home to the farm after officiating a wedding and had given everything away that I gave it all. I'm not even Catholic. I put everything I owned on a collection plate. And I was sitting on the barn beam with a 22 and a rope around my neck. And I couldn't stop thinking about the word stubborn. And for some reason, I started thinking about my friends that were going through the same circumstances, where they were starting to struggle with their families on decision making. And I never thought about them before because I was always had that victim mindset, poor me. And what I came to realize, I felt I had I don't know, God spoke to me in that moment, and I've been saving family farms ever since. I walked away from the barn. I changed my last name to Caygeon, and I'll never go back to the Bob Caygeon until my boy spread my ashes. My life goal is to save as many family farms as possible. And that's what I've done the last 18 years. I started off as a mediator, and my life goal is to get rid of the need for a mediator altogether.
right.
And hopefully,
So,
yeah.
um, it's interesting how you said when you were in that dark place and you're contemplating suicide, and then you think of your friends, you think of other people, and
Yeah.
kind of how you can help. And it feels like sometimes when you're in a dark place, or you're feeling really low, and that kind of focusing on being able to help other people can sort of pull you out of yourself a little bit. It's easy to get focused so heavily focused on yourself, and boy, that just does not sound like a healthy situation, and also like a whole lot of pressure to put on a young man to fix things for his parents. That's tough. That's really hard.
It
So
is what it is.
I'm curious, once you came out of the barn, you decide I'm gonna help other people. What kind of support did you find for yourself?
I didn't have any support. Basically all I've done since I didn't have any support.
Yeah.
I've never been asked that question, so I don't know what to answer that with. Essentially, everybody thought I was crazy. When I said to my friends and everybody that knew me that I was going to go 100% into saving family farms by helping stubborn farmers work better together, everybody thought I had lost it. In fact, my reputation in Ontario was terrible for a little bit because they said he just completely went off his rocker.
Oh.
But I've been saving family farms ever since, and
Yeah.
passionate about turning the word stubborn from a bad thing into a good thing by helping farm families stop being stubborn with each other and start being stubborn with the habits that make a farmer and farm family successful.
Yeah. And it feels like when if you see another family who's sort of experiencing, some of the things that you went through, and if you're able to help them avoid that fate, of falling out and just things going so badly, that kind of maybe helps repair something in you a little bit. I would imagine.
It does. I mean, it's fulfilling for me. It was very difficult. For the first 5 years, I did a lot of farm debt turnarounds in which I would take groceries, basically take some meat out of the like hamburger out of the freezer or vegetables out of the garden. First 5 years, I didn't declare more than $12,000 in income on my income taxes. And what I come to realize, and I think it's very important to realize in this moment, as a lot of farmers are going through farm debt or facing some financial difficulties, one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give them is that usually when I sat down with a farm family that was going through farm financial difficulties, we spent 45 minutes talking about everything that we could not control. We talked about government policies and the way things should be. And I think that for your family farm, the best phrase I can come up with is nobody cares, work harder. This is Cameron Haynes. He has this little podcast there, but nobody cares, work harder. And what I mean by working harder is, it's no problem for a farmer to go spend 18 hours farming. It's no problems. What I'm talking about is working harder at having the conversations that are tough. But that 5-minute conversation is more important than that you working 18 more hours tomorrow.
Yeah.
And more importantly, you being hard on yourself and being authentic and realizing the hypocrisy of what you believe. Like a lot of people that are listening to this podcast, they would identify as being Republicans, Christian farm families who put family first, and they live to pass over grandma's farm to their grandchildren. But I'm going to call BS on that. And here's why. 77% of family farms don't have a succession plan. If you really believed that your life purpose was to pass over grandma's farm to grandchildren, why is there no succession plan in place?
Right.
How many of us, we go to church and then we say and do things behind the barn when nobody's watching to people we love the most?
Yeah. And
it wouldn't be what we'd be proud of if everybody we went to church with could see that in a video reel.
Right.
But we're hypocrites.
Yeah. And sometimes
the key to this crisis is for us to become authentic, to actually live our faith, not just on a pew, to forgive. It says, talk about forgiveness, for instance. It's easy to talk about, but it's hard to do with your daughter-in-law after she said some harsh words.
Yeah.
It's hard to put family first, right? When we sometimes are narcissistic and only concerned about our own needs. And so this farm crisis that we're about to go through, it's a walk through fire process that excites me because it causes us to really understand what it is we really want in life. And I would say that everybody says to me, well, a lot of times I get young farmers, they call me up. And they usually they call me up at the first time that they have to go buy the farm next door. And that first piece of land that they go buy. And I would say to you, the first piece of land that every farmer should go out and buy today is that little cemetery plot 1.5 miles down the road. And I'm not saying that to be morbid, but what I'm saying to you is that you should buy a plot for yourself and all your family members. And the simple question should be, is that we make a statement that between the now and the time that we're all eventually going to go down the road to that cemetery. Between now and then, we're all going to be buried about 15 feet from each other. The question has got to be, how do we make sure that we have the relationships and the discipline within our family so that we're the best version of ourselves every day?
Yeah.
Consistently the partner for anybody would want to work with, so that we always want to be 15 feet away from each other. And anything you can do to do that, if you can improve the very nature of your family relationships so that you can always want to be around each other, then, because you're good at conflict, it's not your weakness.
Yeah.
You're able to have difficult discussions and get the best answers, not based on what you want, but what's the best idea for the family, right? Too often as family farms, it becomes more important to be right and win in an argument than for things to be right. And as a result, we have very disastrous situations that leads to lack of profitability. Like half the decisions that should be getting made on a farm are not getting made or not getting made adequately. And as a result, we're losing half the potential profitability. And more importantly, all that bickering that's caused by button heads and pulling the farm in different directions. It causes so many headaches. And the secret answer is to turn conflict from something that we're avoid at all costs and our passive aggressive nature that we have as farm families, because we say we never want to fight with our families, to recognizing, hey, we're going to have differing opinions here.
Yeah.
What matters is we're able to talk about this in a way that's honest and respectful. And the best decision wins. And so that if you're able to do that, if we have the mindset that our life purpose as a family is to eventually be buried down that cemetery down the road, and to always be able to be the same distance from each other as our cemetery plots, because we enjoy being around each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's because we're good at conflict. Then we can spend the rest of our lives being stewards of the land for the 10 miles around that cemetery.
Right.
And that is our life purpose.
Yeah. That's so interesting. That's such a good point, and you think about like all the pressure to keep the family farm going, but like without the family, it's not a family farm. And if you lose your family because you can't get along, or you can't, manage conflict or work through things together, then what's even the point? Like that's the whole point.
And I think that the root issue we have in family farms is the entitlement. And what I didn't recognize, our first white man killed in our county was back in 1832 on the back end of our farm. And the year that I left for agriculture college, 18 herds of cattle left my county, or my township actually, because everybody said there's no future in farming. I was a kid of the 80s.
Yeah.
Right. And they said there's no future in farming. Don't go to agriculture college. And I thought, when I sat there in agriculture college class, they said only 12% of family farmers pass over the next generation. I said, there's no way in hell that's going to be me.
Yeah.
Because I'm from Bob Caygeon, and I'm going to carry on this family tradition. And what killed our family farm, was the nature of entitlement. I took my dad for granted. My dad took myself, as well as the farm surviving, for granted. And now we're not farming together. Yeah. And I think the key thing is, what we have to recognize is that the probability of having a successful marriage is less than 50% these days. The probability of your farm being profitable in the next 10 years is less than 50%. The probability of you having a successful partnership with your siblings and your parents is less than 50%.
Yeah.
It's less than a 12% probability when you map that out. And instead of having that sense of entitlement, we've got to say, okay, the probability is that I'm an underdog here. And we as a family have to do everything we can to put the family first, to focus on what matters, and to stop being stubborn with each other and be stubborn at the habits that make a farm and a farm family successful.
Right. Yeah. And I think, that's true with any family, no matter what your occupation is, but it's extra true in farming. It feels like when your home and family life is so tied to your occupation, I'm curious too, like now that you're a dad and you're expecting your fifth son soon. So congratulations.
Don't have a kid at 50 apparently.
On that.
But, yeah, that's
oh, yeah. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
But I'm
the day
wondering.
we moved to Iowa, we had it first, actually.
Oh,
or first
so
came
good.
along 9 months later. We were going to call him Hawkeye, but we ended up calling him Huckleberry. But I started having kids at 42.
Oh, that's so good.
When we moved to Iowa.
So how has your, experience, growing up and dealing with your parents and also just the families that you've worked with, how does that influence your parenting style?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't have my wallet on me right now, but I have on my wallet, I have imprinted, be the man you want your boys to become.
Well, that's so good.
And I really take that to heart. And I think I think in order for you to be a successful partner with your siblings and your family, you've got to strive to a higher standard.
Yeah.
And for us so I'm a narcissist in recovery. Okay. And for those of you that don't know what narcissism is, let me just say it, because I think a lot of farm families, you can see elements of this.
Yeah.
It's when you have a me first mentality, you're craving attention, you recognize yourself, but you don't recognize the contribution from your partners. You lack empathy. You downplay others' efforts. You're exploitive in your behavior. You're manipulative in all your tactics. You shift blame onto others, and you're always defensive. And I studied, so I'm a narcissist myself. Okay, I'm going to be straight up about that. And my COVID project was studying narcissism, because there's elements of that within every family farm that I worked with,
Sure.
there's at least one, if not several partners that all accused each other of being narcissistic, but they didn't recognize, they were pointing the fingers at their partners, but they weren't looking at the three fingers pointing back at them. And so I studied narcissism, and I read 47 books during my COVID project. And I came to realize that the opposite, all about the psychology profession, I have a lot of disparaging words to say about them because their success rate is so low. And what they said in that, all the experts in the land said this: you give conditions to your partner, and if they don't change, you divorce them. And that's what I did, and that's why I'm living in Iowa instead of Bob Caygeon. But that's just not acceptable. And during COVID, I came to the realization one day, well, these traits I just spoke to you about, narcissistic traits, what will happen if we recognize the opposite of what a narcissist is, and say we have zero tolerance for narcissism? We actually want to be the opposite. And so I came up with a statement. This is a farm culture statement that I put over a farmer's toilet, because let's be honest, men need to see this twice as much as the women in the shop, right? And it says, this is our farm's culture statements. Together we strive, divided we fail. In order to succeed, we have to shift from a me to we mindset. We will achieve this by adopting these 5 principles. The first principle is be humble and empathetic. Always consider everyone else's needs and feelings, not just your own. To take responsibility, always focus on problem-solving root issues without playing defense. 3 is never feel entitled to more than you've earned. Work hard to earn everyone's respect daily. 4, treat everyone with kindness, respect boundaries, and never take advantage of anyone. And then 5, never need praise or be envious. Be grateful and daily appreciate everybody's contributions. Now, that's easy to say, but it's hard to actually do.
Yeah.
But if you set that as a higher standard, that we want to be the opposite of narcissistic,
Mm-hmm.
and then we weekly try to adapt one habit that we can tweak into rooting the narcissism out of our lives.
Right.
By turning a bad habit into a good habit. So, for instance, you might be defensive, right? Or you might avoid discussing problematic issues. Or when you get into conflict, you might be a jerk in your tone of voice, right? We all have these little habits that are holding us back.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't, the thing about farm families is that without knowing it, we aren't self-aware about how we're being jerks to the people we love the most.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And, just acknowledging and recognizing that, like, that's a thing for you, that goes a long way to breaking cycles for your kids too.
Well,
and paying attention to how your kids are with each other. And at least for me, like, I have 3 boys. So my number one goal, me and my husband, our number one goal is always, like, the only thing I care about is that my boys are close after we're gone. Like, I want them to have good relationships, and I want them to want to be with each other and, to like each other, and just kind of keeping that in mind sort of affected the way that I parented them. But for you, just, and of course we all have things that we recognize. Like, I recognize, I'm, maybe not the best arguer. Like, I maybe go low when I should go high, but recognizing that about myself, I can try to change that, or at least stop it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the thing is that what I found in my business practice. So I used to be a mediator. I was the guy that lawyers and accountants would call. I've saved farms in 22 states and 5 Canadian provinces. I was the guy that was called as the last Hail Mary. Like, if they've already had 2-3 mediators out there, I was called out to save lost causes.
Yeah.
And what I kind of got frustrated by, this is just before COVID, was that I was noticing everybody was always pointing fingers at each other and nobody's looking at the 3 fingers pointing back at them. And so I was able to get a deal brokered. Like, I had a really high success rate as far as getting deals signed for succession or farm debt turnarounds. But, was I satisfied that the family was getting together for Christmas? And that was the number that I kept track of.
Yeah.
And I was shocked to find out that the marriage counselors, they have only a 20% success rate. They have an 80% failure rate. That blew me after studying that profession for 13 years at that time. I'd been got up at 4 o'clock every morning and read psychology books before I had breakfast. I had to read 75 pages every day. And to learn that the psychology profession has that low a success rate, I was like blown away. And I was thinking, did I pick, like, my purpose in life was to help stubborn farmers work better together? And I was frustrated all the time because everybody was always stubborn with each other. And then I had to come to Jesus. There was a family that I was mediating, and two partners were falling apart. There was a kid, he was leading a 4-H calf, and these two brothers were both accusing each other of being narcissistic. And the truth was they both were.
Yeah.
They weren't self-aware of how they were being narcissistic to the other partner, how they were being manipulative, being defensive. They weren't aware of these things because they had grown up in that environment, right? I mean, too often we don't inherit our grandma's recipe for pies and grandma's farm. We inherit all the bad family habits, and we're just not self-aware of things.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I was looking at the kid who's leading his 4-H calf, and his mom was saying words to his aunt that just could not be taken back.
Yeah.
And I was like, have I picked an impossible cause? And I said, what? That kid, I mean, I talked to the one uncle, and he didn't have a good thing to say about his brother. And I said, what's the nephew like? He says, that kid gets up at 4 o'clock every morning and goes and milks cows. He's going to be a hell of a farmer. And I actually asked that same brother, what's it like to farm with your brother? He spent 45 minutes telling me about all the bad things his brother had done. I said, what's it like to farm with your brother on a good day? And he broke down freaking crying. And his wife said to me, I never seen him cry since his dad's funeral. He was a big 300-pound man. But I was looking at that. 2 hours later, he was in an irate conversation with his brother, and they were about to split up things, and one brother was getting up to leave. And I was keeping them together, and I was like, there was Matthew 7:5 was a Bible verse that was on the fridge. The kids were learning for their homeschooling. And it said, do not take the speck of dust out of your brother's eye until you've taken the plank out of your own. Do not take the speck of dust out of your brother's eye until you've taken the plank out of your own. Now, I don't care if you're an atheist, or you think that Elvis is still alive, or you think the aliens are going to come down and get us. That's common sense that every farm family can use to transform yourselves. Is we've got to stop pointing fingers at each other and look at the 3 fingers pointing back at ourselves. Yeah. And we don't understand how we do things sometimes. Sometimes we say and do things that we are done with good intentions, but we don't understand how we can be defensive. We don't understand how we can avoid the issues. We don't understand our tone of voice.
That's a big one.
Like, for the longest time, I spent trying to I was arrogant myself. Here I'm preaching about arrogance, and here I was being a mediator, forcing people to see. I was saying things to people that they needed to hear, but they didn't want to hear. And one time I got into a situation this is about just after COVID. There's a lot of things happen around COVID for me.
Oh, it's crazy time.
Well, the thing is, I was helping a family friend back home. And my wife said, well, you can never tell that guy what to do. It has to be his own idea. And I was working with mules that day, and I was like, you know what? That's the truth. You can never tell a mule or a stubborn farmer what to do, but if it's his idea, he'll do it. And so what I've done since then is I've put together 900 podcasts on stubbornness. I look at how does a family have conflict? How does a family make team decision making? How do they have grit to say what they're doing and then do what they say, as well as purpose and mindset? And I look at all those factors, and basically I'll send you a podcast that's 10-minute podcast that I've done. It's not Joe Rogan. It's me sitting down and talking maybe about being closed-minded, right? And giving you a different perspective of being closed-minded that's counterintuitive to how you think. And I'm able to filter through, like, we have 900 podcasts. I have an hour survey that I'm able to peg you pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll send these podcasts to you based on your personality type and your family dynamics, and then talk to you once a week. And all I ask is that you send a little, I'll send to you as a text of these podcasts, and then you just simply send back a text. Okay, that was a B, or that was an A plus. You hit the nail on the head with our family or that situation. And then that's the topic we talk about once a week. And I ask you some questions and it's like us having a beer on a tailgate. I ask you some questions that makes you think differently about your situation.
Yeah.
And then you decide what changes you want to make as a resolution. And then I work with you to figure out a way to make that work within your family dynamics. And then over 90 days, we send out a survey once a week as to how's he doing with that trait. Like, for instance, you might resolve to have more empathy.
Right.
Well, that's easy for us to say on today, but 3 weeks from now, is that going to stick?
Yeah.
Right. And so what I do is follow through, make sure that habit sticks over 90 days. And if you can get a habit to stick for 90 days, it becomes lifetime. And so all I do with my business is I was a mediator. What I do is I work with, have a course. It's basically 12 weeks. We make one habit change a week. You decide what the habit is that you want to change. We make sure that sticks. So if you got 3 partners, that's 36 changes, little micro habits to how your family has conflict and makes decisions and works together. And then once we got everybody to make at least 8 habit changes out of the 12 weeks, then we start having family business meetings on a weekly basis for 12 more weeks. And I get habits every week as to improving how you make decisions together. And then sitting down to do succession planning, instead of it being World War III, it's a 3-hour conversation because you're able to have conversations with each other where you're honest yet respectful.
I think that's such an interesting way to go about it, because if you think about maybe one of the reasons why some succession, plans don't come together, or working with advisors may not always go the best way, is I feel like farmers, if you have to, especially if you have to struggle to get someone on board, right? Like you got to struggle to get dad or your brother or whoever to even agree to do this. And then once you get them on board, they may come into it with the attitude of, well, this guy's going to fix our mess or whatever, without really doing the work ahead of time of being ready to come to the table and have a conversation with a mediator, with an advisor, whatever it is, without doing that work ahead of time, either with yourself, with your family. You're really kind of you're starting off on the wrong foot. And it feels like that's maybe a big reason why these things sometimes don't go so well.
Well, so 25 years ago, I would have said what I do for a living is a bunch of BS. Right. But I found out there's soft issues which become hard problems in agriculture. And I've gone through a lot of BS because of it. And my life goal is to get rid of the need for that. But the thing is, I think 77% of family farms do not have a succession plan. It's not because they haven't had a succession planner out there, because within the first decade, 95% of farms have had a succession planner out there, if not 2 or 3. And a lot of farm families have PTSD after those incidences, right? It takes a family that got along great, and within 2 hours, they're never speaking to each other again.
Yeah.
And that's because they all suck at conflict. And I'm sure that your grandma is the sweetest lady that has, can make the best pie and cares for you deeply, but she may, you might have an issue. She might have an issue with power control struggles and control issues.
Yeah.
Right. For her to make a few habit changes, for all your family members to make 12 habit changes to how you deal with conflict. So when you have that conversation, you can have pie, right? As you're just talking about how you're splitting up the pie.
Right.
Right. But I think the bigger question should be not just how we're having the pie, but how are we going to grow this pie so that everybody can have enough to eat?
Yeah.
And I think that as we get into this next 5 years, talking about how to turn around a farm's profitability you look at the farm subsidies. I hope that they're still around in 10 years time, but we have, like I was saying in a different podcast, there's about 120,000 farmers in America that their full-time living is farming. There's as many Bosnian immigrants, Somalian immigrants in this country as there is farmers, and they all vote. And politicians are soon going to figure out that the farm vote doesn't count. I mean, the Democratic Party already moved their primaries out of Iowa. And I think that we have to stop assuming that we're the majority of the population and realize that we are the minority. And these farm programs that we have around and this attitude of bailing out the family farm, that might not be around in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
And instead of addressing that, I think that what we have to do is be proactive and say, okay, we have to get our farm so that we are bulletproof. Even if there is no farm subsidies, there's no government programs, we are profitable. And if you set that as an absolute truth, like with a lot of farms, like I had one farm in 2012, I walked on the farm and they were losing $200 an acre at $7 corn. And there was the 15th of June, they still hadn't got their beans planted. And it was a rainy day. And they had gone to go buy the farm next door. It was a third farm that they were buying that year, and so they went through a financial audit, and it came out bad. And the banker said the head banker said, not only we're not going to give you this loan, we're going to take your farms unless you guys turn things around here.
Yeah.
And they had a report, and they said, well, you have to get your cost of production down to $4. And the young lad said, well, how the hell are we supposed to do that? And again, coming back to this issue, nobody cares. Work harder. And I'm not saying they worked hard. There's no doubt about that.
Sure.
But they didn't have hard conversations.
Yeah.
They didn't sit down and do the nerd work that is necessary for your family farm to be successful.
Right.
And what we did was I put down $4 on the shop wall. On the shop wall, I spray painted $4. And the guy threw it out of my hand because he says, what the hell are you doing with my shop? He said, this ain't your shop anymore. It's the bank's. You got a year to earn it back.
Yeah.
And I think it's only when your family recognizes we've got 2 years to earn our farm back. Not are we going to be broke in 2 years? We got 2 years to earn it back. And it's by us having the hard conversations and making the hard decisions to pivot. So we are no longer reliant. So we grow food that consumers want to eat. Because the Chinese ain't buying your beans anymore.
Yeah.
That we can turn around your situation. And what we'll do is you will be better as a result of you being able to sit down and crunch numbers and be able to squeeze out an extra 25. Until a family is able to sit down and squeeze out an extra 10% profitability of your operation, you're not ready to do succession planning.
Yeah.
Because all succession planning is a 10-year plan of where the farm's going to be. You got to get good at conflict and having differing ideas and getting to the point that it doesn't matter whose idea it is, the best idea wins.
Right.
And then there's nothing you can't do as a family.
Yeah. And I think when you think about it like that, if you have, 4, 5, 12 people on your family team that, even though you can be so different, but if you think about everybody's strengths and how if you're all working together, how you're like a team of heroes, like you can work together and be this like super team.
Synergy.
and figure stuff out and conquer something together. Like if you think of yourselves as a team rather than like, I got to deal with my brother, you got
to turn conflict. You got to stop looking at farming as a difficult challenge of working with difficult people to difficult challenge, become a better person. And that's by you turning 12 habits that you have related to conflict from weaknesses into strengths. And if you're able to do that, and then you set the example, like I never work with, when somebody calls me up, they always want me to come fix their brother, right? And so for the first month, what I will do is when somebody calls me up, I just work with them one-on-one. I say, don't mention this to your family whatsoever.
Yeah.
Just you and me work together. And you might think that you're perfect, but the thing is, I might show you a few podcasts. You might become self-aware of a couple of things you didn't know that you do that you might. And let's see a change in your actions and your behaviors, your thoughts, words, actions, and reactions. And then and then your family will follow suit as far as wanting to self-improve themselves if they see the self-improvement in you. And I think and basically what I do is I just work with a guy. I mean, is this hogwash? I mean, you tell me. I always guarantee 300% return on investment. If you don't like what I do, don't pay the invoice. I'll work with you for a month. You try it out, kick the tires. And 25 years ago, I would have said this is all a bunch of BS. But, it's the soft issues that become hard problems. And when you think about it, anything you can do to improve the quality of decision-making on your farm, to go from button heads and pulling farm in different directions, everybody on the same page, pulling the same direction, that's going to skyrocket your farm's profitability. Growing more corn next year, there's a lot of farms that'll have a 2-minute discussion. I guess we're going to go all corn next year. Well, where do you think corn price is going to be next year? You have to have a more intelligent discussion within your family. And that's the reason we don't have succession plans 77% of the time, is because families cannot have those hard conversations and be able to make complex decisions. And you have to change that in order to change your farm. You can't just come home with a 200-page business plan and 5 Tupperware containers and force change arrogantly. The problem we have on family farms is that we're arrogant, and we got to get rid of the arrogance and replace it with humility.
Yeah, because if you think about, if you have a scenario where, let's just say it's brothers, it could be any combination of family members, but one, there's conflict there. There's always, everybody has their issues or whatever, but one of the brothers is talking, and he has a really good idea, and the other brother, instead of hearing that idea for what it is and really being open-minded and think about it, he's just thinking like, my stupid brother, like, here he is with another dumb idea. And you come into it with a preconceived notion of like, I'm not listening to anything this guy says.
And as a result, we grow another 3,000 acres of soybeans because we avoided a conversation.
Yeah.
And now we're stuck. So the thing is, how many good ideas do guys have that they're afraid to even bring up?
Yeah, especially if you get that kind of blowback,
But how stupid is it for us to just grow the same 3-4 crops that the government tells us we should do? We should be entrepreneurs and realize that we're producing food for consumers, and start asking ourselves, what do consumers want to eat, and how do I grow it for them and make 10 times more money than I am now?
Yeah.
And that should be the conversation that happens as a result of improving brainstorming within the family. That's getting rid of the idea of that's a stupid idea to making smarter decisions together.
Yeah, because if you can't have a conversation about like, and the big things, you're not going to have a conversation about anything. And, not being able to agree on a succession plan or the direction that the farm is going or all of that, that trickles down. And if you can't have a conversation about that, how are you going to have a civil conversation with your brother about what you're going to plant next year, or when you're going to sell cattle or whatever?
Half the decisions that should be getting made on a farm are not getting made at all, because we're just we're afraid to bring up the issues to our family. And that's causing us to lose our shirts. And that's going to cause, that's going to cause you to not be farming in 10 years' time.
Right.
Or either because of farm profitability or because resentment's built up. There was something that we resented, and it causes us to have a frustrating relationship, either with a spouse or one of our business partners.
Right.
But I guarantee you won't be farming in 10 years' time. We got to stop acting entitled and do everything we can to take humility and do everything we can to be the best version of ourselves every day.
And not making a decision is making a decision.
It's huge.
You're making a decision to do nothing. That's a decision.
You just made a decision this past year to grow half your acres in soybeans.
Yeah.
How'd that work out for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you had a couple ideas last year about how to make more money, and you never brought it up to your partners. Let's be honest with ourselves.
Right.
How many guys are sitting there with windshield time thinking about great ideas and afraid to bring it up to grandpa?
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're afraid,
what's the probability of you passing over your grandchildren's farm, grandma's farm to your grandchildren if you have that attitude?
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. So I'm looking at this list in front of me of, you've written 6 books over the past 10 plus years. And you have evolved, your business has evolved,
A
your
lot,
methods have evolved in
a
that
lot.
time. So in your earlier books, you're talking more about crisis management, transition logistics, that kind
Yeah,
of thing. Now
yeah,
you're talking more about habit change and communication and how that affects everything and trickles
yeah.
down. Um, so if you could go back and rewrite the advice that you gave in your first book or some of your earlier books, what would you change about those messages?
Well, I was initially focused on external, uh, like for instance, I think the biggest shift I've made is we've got to change our locus of control. Like I just gave a farmer in Saskatchewan a sign that I want him to put beside his toilet, and it's a serenity prayer. And it's God give me the serenity to recognize the things I cannot change and the things I can change and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
Now, he's going to start saying that prayer to himself, even though he's an atheist, every time he gets up to use the washroom first thing in the morning. And then we actually, in his corner of his mirror, before he leaves that bathroom, first thing in the morning, he gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We got in the corner of the mirror, we've got him. He's actually got, we've recognized over 12 weeks a couple things that he's got to change. And so for him, it's solve the root problems by brainstorming options. Be curious, not defensive. Anything that could cause resentment, we deal with as quickly as possible. And only through empathy and understanding is the key to our successful partnership and a happy life. And he's just saying that to himself every morning. And what I'm saying to you is that I used to be focused as a mediator on forcing change. What I'm obsessed about is how do we have a shift in identity, right? So you recognize the man you want to become. You recognize honestly with yourself, like, here are a couple flaws that I have. I tend to be defensive and not curious. So from now on, I'm going to be more curious as to trying to listen to my partner instead of being like a lawyer arguing my point. And if you have a guys make 12 habit changes and you have 3 partners, that's 36 changes.
Yeah.
And you will never be perfect. But instead of thinking we have to have the perfect operation, what matters is we making progress. And what I would challenge you is, what's the rate of improvement of yourself every year?
Yeah.
And if you can, if you can change yourself, you can change your destiny, and your partners will be along for the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. That the last part of that affirmation that you read for that farmer was happy, to be happy. And I feel like that's a thing that's just really rarely maybe discussed in any sort of planning, where you're looking at the nitty-gritty, you're looking at the logistics, you're looking at the money, da da da. But like really what it all comes down to is like, are we happy? You know?
Well, I think we make so there's I'm really into Greek philosophy, and don't come across too nerdy, but I think it all comes back to that buying that cemetery plot
Mm-hmm.
and ask yourselves as a family, what's going to make us successful and happy as a family? That the time we spend on this earth, we are stewards of the land in this county, 10 miles around the cemetery plot. But how are we going to be happy? What does happiness look like? And what do we have to be in order to be successful? And what that is it's called eunomy. The Greek philosophers, they had the term eunomistic. I can't say it very well. And then hedonistic.
Mm-hmm.
And too often we affiliate hedonism as far as like something, decisions you would make in Las Vegas,
Right.
But the thing is that too often we fall tempted to say things that cannot be unsaid to our daughter-in-law
Oh,
behind the
yeah.
barn.
Yeah.
We make short-term, emotionally fueled decisions, and
Mm-hmm.
it's instead of, it's like you put. I mean, with you add emotions. There's having a fire, and then there's adding gasoline.
Yeah.
Well, you might have a bad thought, but the thing is, if you continue to think that, if you become so fueled by your instant need for gratitude, instant need for recognition, an instant need for whatever your emotions are in that moment, it's like you're like when I was a 10-year-old child, I used to ride a horse that was 2,000 pounds. He was a big Clydesdale named Joe, my grandpa's horse. And I controlled that horse sometimes with a bit and bridle. But if I didn't have a bit and bridle, that horse would go over wherever he would want to go on the pasture field. And too often we're not controlling the horse is controlling us. And that's because we're driven by emotions, instant gratitude, instant needs, our hedonistic needs, instead of thinking, being obsessed with the long-term success and happiness this family looks like. And that starts with putting your family first, not last. Right. And we all say that we're family first, but I have my belt buckle. It says family first on it. On the back of my belt buckle, which I have for all my boys, it says be the right type of stubborn. Focus on what matters. And I think that just to wrap things up, or maybe, is that what I've come to realize is that farming with family is like being in a marriage. Mm-hmm. And people don't realize, like I used to think that my dad was going to retire after 3-4 years of me being home. But I mean, back in the 60s, when Dad was 60, he would retire because my grandpa retired because his hips were shot. Yeah. Nowadays, Dad goes in for hip surgery and goes in, still farm for another 30 years. And if you want to farm till you're 92 and then tell the neighbors you're semi-retired, I'm all about that. But we've got to recognize there's 3-4 generations farming together. Yeah. And the other big change that's really happened in the last 100 years is that marriage has changed. Like nobody wants to feel subservient to somebody. Right. Nobody wants to be the other guy's slave. And yet we have half our marriages failing because we're all about that in theory, but not in practice. And when a man gets married, he stands before God, family, and friends, and community. And he's making the statement, I am no longer going to be arrogant. I am no longer going to be narcissistic. I'm no longer going to act entitled and take this person for granted. I'm always going to put family first. Mm-hmm. And yet, how often do we forget that 3-4 years down the road? Yeah. And it's because we act narcissistic, entitled, and arrogant with each other that families fail and farming partnerships fail. Yeah. And I think the real answer here, what I came to realize when I talked to you about earlier about narcissism was, and I don't care if you're an atheist, a lot of farmers, they consider themselves good Christian farm families. I think the answer is in us actually living our values behind the barn. Yeah. And when we get married, a lot of us say 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7, which is love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. Always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. If we, as Christian farm families, actually apply our principles behind the barn, not just talk about them to the neighbors, but to live them, by us learning to be a better man every day, by learning our weaknesses and turning them into strengths, so we are the partner and friend anybody would want to have. To say that love is not easily angered, keeps no records wrong. Easy to say at church, hard to actually do. But I think that what really excites me is that this challenge we have in this farm crisis, I feel we're 79 going into 84. It's for those of us that survive, it's going to make us better. It's not just going to make us more profitable farmers. It's going to make us better people because we're going to turn our weaknesses into strength by stop being stubborn with each other. Yeah. And start being stubborn on the habits that make a farm and farm family successful.
Well, that is a great way to look at it. It's a really great concept for farmers to think about, taking a look at yourself. Like you said, rather than just pointing the finger all the time. Nobody's perfect. We all have things we can fix and improve on. And also, like you said, when other members of your family or your team see you working on those things for yourself, it inspires them to do the same. And especially if you have someone who's maybe a little less excited about the process. They see it working in other people.
Just want to comment. So I wrote a book. I've written 7 books.
Yeah.
Tough Times Never Last, Tough Farm Families Do, Bulletproof Your Farm, Farm with Family Ain't Always Easy. My first book was called Farm Succession Shouldn't Be Done at the Funeral Home. Really proud of my last book. It's called Stubborn. It's got 5 out of 5 stars on Amazon. And, anybody that is listening to this podcast, it's a 2.5-hour book. That's an audio book. If you go to my website, stubborn.farm, I give away copies. I'll just send you a text this afternoon. You can listen to it this afternoon while you're finishing off combine or whatever you're doing that day. But in the back of my book, which is the unfortunate part, is I have a pledge. And I think for anybody that wants to change the family dynamics this Christmas, if on the back of the book it says, I pledge, basically I have a bad habit and then a new habit and the fix. And then I have a pledge that says, I pledge to become a stubborn and a positive way over the next 30 days to make this new habit stick. One condition, read this book, Stubborn. And if you do, I'll take you and our other partners out for lunch in a month to discuss the topics.
Very good.
Then you say the lunch date, the time, and the suggested location. And then underneath it says, I'm serious about catalyzing change by first changing myself. If my partners don't see this habit stick, then I'll tip a waitress $100.
Nice.
Now, you might be owed $100, but what you will do is inspire the change within your family that we're all trying to self-improve. Mm-hmm. And if you can give this to your family and put this book in the sock of all your partners and say, I'm going to take you out for New Year's lunch. And in the month of December, work on one habit change. Something like stop being emotionally manipulative, or stop ignoring facts, or stop being closed-minded, and recognize that that's a fault of yours. And for the next month, you're going to work on that.
And, maybe having a challenge like that, especially if you're in a competitive family.
You might be out $100, but the thing is, your family farm will still be there 100 years from now. Right. Because you turn stubborn from a weakness of a family trait into your strength, because you're stubborn with yourself, become the man you have the potential to be.
Right. And like you said, the man that you want your sons to become. So
exactly.
It's a good way to look at it. And I love just the idea of, thinking about those cemetery plots. And even though no one likes to think about that day,
it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. It happens to everybody. And to think about the people that are next to you and making the most of your life with those people. That's what it's all about. It's more important.
And I think it comes back to, like, I expected when I was in Bob Caygeon, I expected somebody to actually care and step in to fix my situation with my dad.
Yeah.
And the truth is, nobody cares. You can complain to your seed salesman, your veterinarian, you can complain to your banker about your situation with your family, but nobody cares. It's up to you to have the hard conversations and work hard on, crunching the numbers and squeezing out the profitability of your operations so you're bulletproof. And until you take that, until the locus of control goes from being external to internal, your grandkids will not farm. It's only when you learn the serenity prayer and you have the wisdom to know what's in your control and you do something about it.
Yeah.
By being hard with yourself, being the right type of stubborn. My family, 7 generations ago, Bob Caygeon's a terrible place to farm. But the reason why we were successful for 7 generations is that my family was the right type of stubborn. But in a 7-minute conversation one day, my dad and I were the wrong type of stubborn.
Yeah.
And we're not farming anymore. The question is, are you and your grandkids going to farm 7 generations from now? And it's only by you being the right type of stubborn.
Yeah.
And that's stubborn with yourself, not each other.
Right. Well, I think it's really, really smart to, think about these questions and you've done a good job of outlining all of this, in your writing and in just your process of working through these micro habits and thinking about yourself, first and working together as a team. I think that's what it's all about. And just changing the mindset of, like, we can do anything together is, like, when you're on the same team, it just feels better than having to
Absolutely.
fight your own family, for sure. So,
And farming becomes fun again.
yeah, exactly. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk to us today. You have a really interesting story, and there are so many good lessons there. So, I will share links to your website and your books and everything else in the show notes. But again,
If anybody hears this podcast and can think of a neighbor or two friends that would actually get something out of this message, my ask is that you would share this with them.
yeah,
And let's save family farms together.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you to our guest today, Caygeon, for sharing his expertise on a successful family legacy. For more information like this, please visit agriculture.com, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. You can also follow Successful Farming on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, and be sure to check out our other podcast, 15 Minutes with the Farmer and Successful Farming Daily, wherever you get your podcasts.